Hey, 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 what do you know? It's time for a show. I think I got everything. Get a little closer. There we go. Oh, my robe's opening. I don't need to show you my chest. It's the trouble with doing a show with a robe. It's a strong opportunity for wardrobe malfunctions. Oh man, I really have to cut my hair. 2, 1. Good morning, everybody. Welcome. Today is Tuesday, January 7th, 2020. Still weird saying that. My name's Jeremy, and this is my first cup of coffee. Made it a few minutes earlier today, so it's a little bit cooler, so I can drink it a little bit easier. Constant adjustment, constant iteration of morning. I want to go back to bed. Ooh. Was up late chatting with a friend on the phone. Good morning, Stacy. And yeah, I think I got to bed at like 10:30, which is late for me. I don't usually do 10:30, but that's okay. Guess what today is? It's the first Tuesday of the month. What does that mean? Martial Arts Radio Live. Yes, 8 p.m. Facebook. Martial Arts Radio Live. Don't miss it. There's an event. There are Facebook events for each of these. So if you want the easiest place to follow along, go find it. It's there. We don't have too many events tied to Whistlekick, so you should have a hard time finding it. What else? What's going on? What was yesterday? Yesterday was a reasonably productive Monday. Despite, still hovering at like 95%, feeling better. Despite it being Monday, despite it being the first real Monday after holidays. Oh, excuse me. I got a decent amount of work done, and I'm really proud of myself for that. What did I do? Worked on another book, worked on stuff for the current book, did a little bit of consulting, did some email. Yeah. It was a variety. It was a variety pack. I find variety packs interesting because inevitably there are things in there that you don't like as much. It could be a pack of socks of different colors. And there's always one or two pairs. You're like, yeah, I wish it didn't have these. We always have our favorites. In any set, we end up having our favorites. And it's not always what you thought it would be. Sometimes it changes. I find that interesting too. Anything else? Went to the gym, dinner with friends, cleaned up a little bit. Yeah. Um, what's today? I don't even know what today is. I mean, I know it's Tuesday. That's pretty obvious. I know I have an interview coming this afternoon. I think I have two today. Two interviews. I have a phone call with someone who supposedly who may help me shed some light on a subject. For those of you that follow Whistlekick really closely, we had an attempt at some data-driven reporting called the Whistlekick Report, and this was meant to provide some information that primarily martial arts school owners would find helpful around what was going on with martial arts schools in general. If you're seeing an uptick in students, sometimes you wonder, is that a trend that everyone's seeing, or is that just me? Or what if there's a downtrend? Is that just me, or is that most schools? And we wanted to put some numbers out there, and had a really, really hard time getting enough people to contribute. So I am Still open to doing that, but am starting to talk to some people and find out, what did I do wrong? How do I make it better? How do we get more people to participate? And so I have a phone call this morning. Strangely enough, with a college friend who has nothing to do with martial arts, but has some things to do with data and analytics and surveys and such. Other than that, it's work, 2 interviews. Yeah, I'm looking forward to Martial Arts Radio Live. This will be, what, the 4th one? And they keep getting a little better. Last time we did it in front of a fire. Probably do that again, because that's a good spot. Stacy says, I certainly remember the report. Good luck mining your friend's mind. Data analytics are fun. They are. I like numbers. I think it's, if this was a different industry, it wouldn't be hard to get school owners, aka business people, to want to know more about data and everything. But the martial arts industry is weird. It really is. This is why I've been working on this business for years, and why I'm just starting to figure some things out over the last couple. We're getting there. We'll continue to get there. I'll continue to try. All right, let's do the question thing. We got some questions here. Thank you to Frank. So let's see what they are. January is Get a Balanced Life Month. What are the top 5? Ooh, he's making me work. Top 5 obstacles to getting a balanced life physically. Getting enough sleep, drinking enough water, eating an appropriate amount of food, eating a balanced diet of food, getting enough movement or exercise. Sleep, water, good quality food, not too much of it, move. If you do those things, everything else falls into place. 90-something% of the time. I don't know very many people. Interestingly enough, I was one of these people, but I don't know too many people who check all those boxes and aren't where they want to be in terms of their physical health. I had some hormonal stuff I had to deal with. And once I did, everything fell into place. Sleep is so fundamental. I remember being in my 20s and thinking, oh, I can't go to bed yet. It's too early. So what? You're tired. Go to bed. It hasn't been for that long in evolution that we have clocks. Back in the day, if you were tired, it was dark, you go to bed. The water thing, yeah. We're starting to see some research around the quality of water. This idea that water is water does not seem to be true. First and foremost, you've got, I predict in the next 10, 20 years, we're going to look back on public water and adding chlorine or chloramine to it as, in the same vein as forcing everyone to smoke, because that chlorine destroys the bacteria in your gut, and it messes with things. It messes with so much. So having good quality water, it doesn't have chlorine in it, and we're starting to see some research on the structure, the memory of water. I don't know enough about that to really talk about it. Food, obviously, don't eat too much of it, and eat a good diet of diverse whole foods. And then the movement, you gotta move. And that doesn't just mean exercise. The intensity of exercise, um, if you compare walking, say just like general movement, you know, versus exercise, they actually have different impacts on the body. There are things that happen during slow, kind of just plodding along that you wouldn't get, say, from a run or from an intense session at the gym. So you got to move. One is not fully a substitute for the other. Oh, thank you, Stacy. It's really interesting stuff. Let's look at the next one. What are the top 5 obstacles to getting a balanced life mentally? For me, the physical ones are a huge piece. So we could almost say that another piece to getting your life balanced physically is getting your life balanced mentally, and vice versa. Having your life balanced mentally requires having your life balanced physically. It's a bit of a chicken and egg thing, but as you work towards both, they fall in line. For example, I know that if I don't sleep well, or if I haven't had enough movement, if I haven't exercised for a couple days, I'm out of sorts. I'm just not a happy camper. Right? I'm less confident on the broad applicability of my answers on the mental one. I would say having a purpose, having quality personal relationships, contemplating whether having a purpose and having challenges are necessarily the same thing. They can be. I don't think they have to be. I think some people would say that they're, some people with children might say that their children are their purpose. It's their drive. But the challenge of, work or an extracurricular satisfies them in another way. Yeah. Having a why, having challenges to overcome, having quality relationships, having having physical needs met. There's 4. I don't know. What else? Those of you watching, what do you think? Probably something around entertainment, joy, downtime, something in there. For me, I remember there was a particularly busy time in my 20s as I was building my computer company where I was getting up at 6 in the morning, maybe 6:30, getting to the office at 7:30. We would open at 8, and I would work until 8, 9 o'clock and go home and go to bed. And all I did was work. I was dying. And so I did something kind of weird. I started getting up early and watching a movie. This is back in the days when Netflix was DVD only. I would get up, I would watch a movie, put it in the sleeve, put it in the mailbox, because you had to put them in the sleeves and mail them. It's crazy. And go to work. And I found that even though I had less sleep, I was happier because I had something in my life that I enjoyed, and I needed that. I needed that personal time. I needed that me time. I don't remember how long I was in that space. It was more than a few weeks. A couple months, maybe 3 months. It was tough. It was really tough. Stacy says, I think the things to keep me mentally, spiritually healthy certainly do include movement, but equally important to me is stillness and quiet. Not as in go to bed, but intentional quality quiet time. That's a great point. And it's something that I probably take for granted because I live out in the woods and I live alone. And other than the noise, the sounds that I make or turn on, music, TV, whatever, you know, the cat's pretty quiet. I get a good amount of that when I go out in the woods for a hike or go for a walk. I get a good amount of quiet, and that is pretty important. And I think some people might lump that in as meditation, or thoughtfulness, or being present. I think there are a lot of ways to look at that, but they're all roughly around the same thing. And it's having space to be, to contemplate. Different people need it in different ways and for different amounts. And it's totally fine. Good answer. Thank you, Stacey. I like that one. And what's our last one today? Last question of the day. How do I keep myself balanced? I answered a lot of that. There are things that I don't have to worry about because I've got them as part of my routine. For example, water. I'll give you guys a couple examples of the things that I don't worry about. So, we all know I live outside of town. I live on my own land. And I have a well, right? And I've had the well tested, and the water's great. It's a little heavy, so I run it through a pretty high-end gravity filter. It's not like a Brita. It's from a company called Berkey. And I keep it full, and really good water coming out. And I drink 16-ounce glass of water every morning when I get up. I'll spare you all the reasons I do it, but bottom line, unless I'm really avoiding drinking anything, that makes the difference for me to make sure I'm hydrated through the day. My life by design, I tend to have enough me time, right? Or at least enough quiet time, not necessarily enough me time. Not all the time. But when it comes to movement and exercise, I know if I'm not getting it because I can feel it. I can feel my body getting anxious. And I've learned, okay, if I'm feeling this way, the best way to deal with that is to do something active. It usually requires me leaving the house because working out in the house while I'm already feeling anxious, being in the house doesn't work for me. One of the things that I do prioritize to keep my life in balance is leaving the house. I try to leave the house every day because if I don't have contact with other people very often. Sometimes people come over, friends come over, but it's not every day. And I've learned that as much as overall people are weird and strange and I don't always understand them, I'm a social person and I need to get out of the house. And that means that I go to, there's a co-working space I have a membership at. I spend time there, or I'm at coffee shops, or whatever, just to get out, even if I'm not talking to people, just to be around people, I've noticed to be really important for me. And that is a huge element to keeping my life in balance. And I would say for most of us, we know the things that we struggle with. We know the things that we do well. We know the things that we don't. And being honest with yourself about the things that you're not so good at and knowing when you've got to ask for help or when you've got to make a change. I think that's a pretty important skill that we all have, we just don't all admit it. Balance is critical. I mean, there's a reason that we think of balance as, this kind of celestial force, when we think of Justice. You know, the she has a name and it's escaping me, but the blindfolded woman with the holding the balance, the scale, right? Balance is something that we really value. If you look at studies on what we find attractive, symmetry in the face, balance from left to right, there are people who their desire for balance is so strong that they have a condition around it, sometimes OCD, right? Balance is something I think we all crave, and you don't have it if you don't work for it. Good questions today. Now, I'm sure you can guess what your homework for today is. It's to consider where your life is and is not in balance. The places that it's in balance, awesome. Celebrate that. Feel good about that. The places where it's not, try to come up with just one thing you can change that will move one of those aspects in the right direction. You don't solve everything overnight, but as you solve one thing, it'll inspire you to solve others. Okay? Now, don't forget, we do this show every weekday morning, 6:30 a.m. Eastern, here on YouTube, or catch it later, firstcupwithjeremy.com, or in your podcast feed. If you want to ask a question, and I hope you do, remember, this is our collective resolution for 2020. I want questions from more of you. Please comment it below here on YouTube, or if you're listening, email me, jeremy@whistlekick.com. Subscribe, turn on notifications. We release a lot of content, more content coming all the time. And if you are open to supporting us, patreon.com/whistlekick. And you can find links to that from whistlekick.com or from our podcast site, whistlekickmartialartsradio.com. I hope you have a fantastic day. Thanks for coming by and having a cup of coffee with me. I'll see you back here tomorrow. Take care. Peace.